Welcome, broadcasting to the entirety of the Super Smash Bros. Community. This is Beyond the Metagame. I'm your host, Peon, this week live from Mozambique. I'm joined, as always, by wonderful co-host, Abhi. Abhi, how's it going, big boss?
I do think that the creators of Apex Legends have officially just done a massive disservice to the African continent by making the Mozambique the worst gun in the... I don't know if they've changed it, but...
No, it still sucks. Could you imagine that? Like, imagine a universe where, get this, like some Mozambican, some African country makes a video game, right? And they name the worst gun, like, after your hometown. Or your like city or whatever. Like, come on, how does that not feel personal to the citizens of Mozambique?
Yeah, I just hope that they're not taking it personally. Hopefully it gets buffs. So that's that's what I'm hoping. But in any case, we're not here to talk about Apex. We're here to talk about Smash. How are you doing, Peon?
I'm doing well, big guy. I'm really excited for our interview today. But before we get into that, with our special guest Fatality, I want to do some housekeeping, AV. I know you and I haven't made a fitness update in a long time. That was kind of something that we said that we would do on the podcast. It's kind of like something that our Discord community has really been kind of latching onto, and everybody's kind of been getting fit together. It's a pretty cool like side effect to this whole playing Smash Bros thing. What about you, man? How you feeling? You've been making progress?
Feeling great. About like 3 or 4 months ago, I had this like period of time where I was sick for like an entire month. Took me ages to recover from that, but I think we're back on the game train. It's looking good. I've been having like a really consistent schedule, getting all of my big lifts in, and I think I'm on the cusp of starting to make some PRs. So it's really exciting. And even though I'm doing like hypertrophy training, or for the uninitiated, I'm just doing like high rep.
You're trying to get big,
like medium weight. Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to get big, not necessarily optimizing for strength, and I'm still getting strength improvements. So I'm really excited. I know you've been making some cool strides. What's going on with you?
Yeah, man. I've been. My primary goal now is to lose weight and to just like keep being healthy. I've been lifting lots. I'm actually at my strongest I've ever been, and I've lost 15 plus pounds from the time I started kind of making some positive changes. Also, my girlfriend's been coming to the gym with me too, so we're like well on our way to being a fit couple. We're gonna be like that annoying couple at the gym with like, I don't know. We're not gonna wear matching clothes or anything, but we're definitely getting dangerously close to being the annoying couple at the gym. But it's been really great, man. It's really been, and I think it's actually been improving my performance at games. I don't want to get too, mystical here, but I really feel like my mentality, my brain's just been firing off at maximum capacity too recently, and I think there's a strong correlation between me, my brain functioning and also just me functioning in the gym too. So who knows? But I'm feeling great, and I'm happy you are too, AV.
Are you sure your success wasn't due to your new essential oil collection?
Well, AV. Can I tell you something? After I bought those essential oils from you and your side hustles, you keep calling it, I actually never used them. I just wanted to support you and your entrepreneurial spirit.
All right, you got me then. All right, what are we going to be talking about today?
Yeah, man. So we have the legendary Captain Falcon, Fatality, coming on the show, and honestly, man, I had high hopes for this one because Fatality is kind of a character. If you watch his YouTube content or his stream, or if you ever kind of see him on stream, he has such a personality that you notice right away. He's very much an individual in the best type of way, and I think that that sense of individuality really is manifested in his gameplay. And today, you and I kind of get to open up his brain and take a peek into the mind of a guy who has done so much with a character that not a lot of people believe in.
Yeah. And kind of jump on that. His individuality is so clear and well expressed that he's able to basically like figure out all of his own like like brain patterns and optimize his play and his training methods based on it. And it's so cool because of all this time I've been telling people to introspect and stuff, and I finally get to show you a living, breathing example of what it means when you've introspected to the fullest and you've reached like this Super Saiyan mode where you understand everything about yourself. So if you want to know what the benefits of introspection are, just listen to this episode and listen to Fatality talk about himself, and it's amazing.
Yeah, man. Well, I think he needs no more introduction. All that and more in just 1 second. Welcome back to Beyond the Metagame. This week, AV and I are here with special guest Fatality. This last weekend got 5th at DreamHack Dallas. He's kind of known for being the top Falcon in Smash 4 and Ultimate. He's had some outrageous career performances, including like a 2nd place at 2GG Civil War back in Smash 4. And these days, in addition to competing, he streams and makes YouTube content. Fatality, thanks for joining us.
Good evening, everyone. I'm glad to be here and happy to answer any questions you may have and hopefully provide some insight as to, what makes me as a player tick, what I can do for the metagame, and everything else.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And kind of right off the bat, to talk about something that's very recent and something that I believe you've had a lot of time to think about and flesh out. What are your thoughts about this latest patch 3.1? Like, there were a lot of changes. He kind of shook a lot of things up. Where does CF stand now? Where did he stand before? And what are you hopeful for the future?
Long story short, I thought of Captain Falcon and the prior patch as being a character that had a pretty high amount of potential, but was ultimately going to be limited until he reached said potential. This is because he's an extremely high skill ceiling character, so it's just going to take a while for him to reach a point where his tools reach their maximum effectiveness, which is why he hasn't seen that much results yet. And I thought this is more or less going to fix itself over time, bit by bit, like over a year or so. But then in the most recent patch, funnily enough, they actually ended up giving him new things to where he's become an even harder character to play effectively, but he's also quite a bit more powerful. So because of this, I imagine Optimal Falcon may not have that many losing matchups, and maybe in a year or so, assuming nothing changes, be top tier. I'm completely serious.
Wow, okay. So you say that he had a lot of potential before. Would you confidently say that his potential has grown since the patch? Like, are you...
Significantly.
Wow. Like by a factor of what would you say? Like, do you think it's like super beneficial, or was it just kind of a touch up? Would you say?
Not only were the changes he received super beneficial just in the context of him as a character, but in addition to that, many of the challenges facing him as a consequence of the metagame being the way it is have actually sort of passed away, since a variety of those characters have received fairly notable nerfs, but more importantly, they received nerfs in areas that previously allowed them to hold back Falcon to an extent where he wouldn't reliably win the matchup, assuming that they knew how to play it optimally. And then combine that with the tools that he got, especially the changes to Raptor Boost, Forward Tilt, and a few others, that have made it to where a lot of the things that he on paper needed in order to be able to contest these characters, but he didn't quite have before, he now does. And then they got worse on top of that, to where a lot of his losing matchups from before, I genuinely believe he probably goes even with now. And that's wonderful.
That's pretty wild, honestly. Like, I can see it. I always saw that he had potential. I had a pretty strong Captain Falcon player in my region too, so I was always wondering, it's like, is he underrated? Like, what's the real deal here? Two things. You mentioned once that he got a little more complicated with the current patch, and there's some new stuff to learn. And also, like, what do you think was his hardest matchups, and what was fixed it over time. And I get those two things.
Well, regarding his harder matchups, pre-patch, the hardest ones were undoubtedly Pikachu and Pichu, and arguably Game & Watch as well. And I think all three of those got easier, mainly due to one, the Raptor Boost changes, which have made the armor on it significantly more consistent along with the hitbox. Before, Raptor Boost was a move that, on paper, seemed to be designed so that it could be used as a way of Captain Falcon to keep other characters more honest if they're just going to press buttons in his face. Because they gave it armor and they gave it anti-air capabilities so that you could use it as a way of stuffing out these options. But the hitbox and the armor were both inconsistent enough to where, in actual practice, this very rarely happened. Now, with both of those things fixed, in addition to it gaining additional hit stun on landing to where you can combo out of it, it's now quite a strong tool against a lot of things. Like, you can literally Raptor Boost through Palutena Nair and start a combo off of her trying to just nair you. Like, you can do that to pretty much all small characters' hitboxes quite reliably, like Pikachu and Pichu. It's incredible. And then, like, the F-tilt change. That's amazing. So with the F-tilt change, starting from 10 to 15% on roughly the entire cast, whereas the actual percentages vary bit by bit, it actually forces tumble when it didn't used to. So because of this, you can force tech chases between 10 to 15% starting on almost every character in the game.
Oh my god.
And being able to... So because of that... Yes. So his new F-tilt is amazing because you can do, like... Suppose you land Nair 1 in neutral, for instance. You could do, like, Nair 1 into attack cancel back air, and now they're at, like, 13%, okay? Which means they're now at prime percentages for you to F-tilt them. Then you reaction tech chase, not unlike what you see in Melee if you ever watch, like, Wizard play.
Oh, sure.
To where you just literally just react to where they go and grab them. Now they're at roughly 25 to 30-ish, okay? So because of this, funnily enough, a lot of Captain Falcon's most powerful grab follow-ups out of down throw, guess when they start? Around that range. So because of this, he has so many of his previous combos can now naturally sieg into F-tilt sequences that are going to, assuming perfect execution, set you up into like down throw, up air, up air, up air, or down throw, up air into up tilt, or down throw, up airs into landing up airs on a platform into knee, or going for like knee / down air 50-50s. Like, it's actually kind of horrifying how strong it is on paper. It's going to require a lot of skill and a lot of time to optimize, but I've already proven to myself that it works. So it's just a matter of time of just optimizing it at this point. And like those changes have, and like also the F-tilt change. So before he was lacking in ways to effectively combat a variety of characters at a mid-range. He either wanted you to be immediately in his face or he wanted you to be in long range, and he kind of struggled when you were literally anywhere else. And F-tilt has given him a not incredibly safe, but safe enough mid-range poking tool that gives us a way to contest a lot of characters in neutral. And then the up-tilt change made it to where if we think that someone's going to come towards us with a hitbox, we can just know you and reversal it, and it's great.
Right. So
he's
that's
gained
actually
so much versatility.
Oh, pardon me. That actually is something that reminds me of something that I've always kind of admired about you. You see, I was a Falcon main in Smash 4 for a majority of my time playing that game. So of course, the guy to watch, the guy to learn from was you, Fatality, and I followed you and tried to. Oh man, of course, and you were the person to emulate. And one thing I noticed about, I don't know if you want to say your personality or your play style or just the way you think about the game, is you're someone who's very into practice. You try to perfect techniques that you think up or theory craft or that somebody else does. And it seems like you're super fascinated by the perfection of very hard to master techniques. In Smash 4 it was like the footstool combos, I think, with up air to footstool and into the downer. You had like all these crazy combos that you would land every time. For other people it was like, oh, these are the optimal combos, but they're too hard to consistently go for. But you would kind of say, and correct me if I'm wrong, you would kind of say Yeah, they are optimal. They are hard. Therefore, I must learn it. I must perfect it. Uh,
Exactly.
yeah, like what is your philosophy on practice? How do you do it so well, better than everybody else?
Well, I think the main thing that sticks out to me is that I enjoy the process of scientific exploration, if you will, so much that a lot of times perhaps I might be in the shower or something, and I just randomly think about something. And then I find myself thinking, okay, so what if I can hypothetically create this situation on a reliable basis? And then I go about trying to find ways I can do so. Most of the time when I'm practicing, I'm not actually playing the game. I'm literally just thinking about things, simulating situations in my head, and asking myself, what reliable situations in neutral can I go about creating these moments that I can then take advantage of through the optimization of the more physical parts of the game? And obviously, I used to just practice a lot of that stuff just by myself normally, but recently I've started doing it quite frequently on my stream, and even like my YouTube videos that contain highlights of my stream often feature tidbits of me practicing in training mode. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the training mode mod that Linyoa created, but it's one you can use to have a CPU literally do whatever you want. Like you can have it do down and away DI with frame perfect air dodges or frame perfect jump outs or whatever. Or like you can tell it to do various sequences of commands. Like if you want to have a Roy do short hop neutral air towards you into immediate air dodge and then practice against that, you can. And so because of that, I'll often on my stream just mess around with all these highly specific things to try and fine tune all the little things I can do. Like
Oh,
obviously I did
sure.
stuff kind of like that in Smash 4, but in the case of the footstool combos, for instance, I was not the one who discovered those. It might have been Ryukred who found a lot of the footstool locks
Hmm.
into like knee confirms, but I was definitely the one who like made it standard practice and established it as a relevant threat in the metagame. But I am not the founder by any means. So make
Okay.
sure you give credit
Shout out
because
to
he deserves
Ryukred.
it.
But so will you actually backtrack on? So I have been exposed to that training the training methods that you use only because I've seen it in your YouTube content. I actually have not messed around with it myself. Would you endorse this? Like, is this something that you'd
Absolutely.
recommend? Where could people find it?
All right. So if you look up Linyoa on Twitter, Linyoa, literally just spelled like that, nothing else to his Twitter at, you can just buy them from him, or he actually has a guide on how to make one yourself, although you have to buy a variety of parts and you also have to have either experience or the technical know-how to be able to effectively solder a controller on your own.
Hmm.
So if you're not the most mechanically savvy person, I don't recommend trying that. But if you are, you can save some money and make one yourself, and then
Yeah.
just download the software program he created, because it's basically just a module that you can buy, or you can make a makeshift one yourself and then just download the software he has onto it for free. But
Okay.
I bought mine for I think $50 at Frostbite because he actually had a he was in the vendor aisle, or not. He wasn't there, but someone that works for him was there and selling them en masse, and so I happened to sneak myself in there and buy one before stock ran out. So I'm happy about that.
So it actually like takes control of a controller and will buffer options and do things that that you want it to do based on your regimen.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's something like a really patient little brother couldn't do, but if you don't happen to have one of those lying around, it's nice to have.
Exactly. And it's especially useful if you understand exactly what opponents can do to get out of things perfectly. For instance, if you understand the exact perfect DI for an opponent as a certain character to escape X combo, you can be like, okay, well, let me have this CPU practice that exact thing so I can practice dealing with someone who is going to behave correctly. And then obviously, if they don't, your life gets easier, but it's better to practice assuming they're going to make your life as hard as possible and then be pleasantly surprised if they're not.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. It always just set your expectations for your opponent as high as possible, which is cool. I think that with this really methodical process, using obviously tools that are available to you through like mechanical transformations, and an extremely like a process based training pattern. It seems like it seems so obvious, but is this the is it doesn't seem accessible for every type of brain. Is this kind of like, do you feel like it's something that people can develop, like this type of methodical process-based training? And if so, how?
To be quite honest, I'm not entirely sure, but even as a child, I always had a lot of aspirations as a scientist, and I'm actually technically a scientist outside of the game. So that probably has a lot to do with it. But I'd say if your brain doesn't necessarily click with these things, then what you can do instead is find people who do, who will learn these things on their own and then just learn from them. Because I know there are a lot of people, for instance, who won't necessarily just do the lab work, but they can take the fruits of someone else's lab work and then immediately apply that into their own gameplay fairly seamlessly. So if you're like one of those kind of people, you mean that's fine, you know?
Right.
You might miss out on being literally the first person to develop something because of that, but like I know someone who does this very well, for instance, Anti, and he even tweets about it sometimes where he doesn't really like lab stuff, but he's very good at quickly adapting anything he sees into his gameplay. He's like, oh, I like that. And then it becomes a part of his gameplay or whatever.
Right.
Like, so you can make a lot of different things work. It really just depends on what you want to do for that. But for me, I am a scientist in and out of the game, so it's just a natural evolution to try and streamline information processing in the context of the game into that as well.
That's actually really cool, and I like the confidence that you say that with. Like, this is the way my brain works, so therefore I will study and practice the way that is compatible with my brain, and that's actually shows a level of self-awareness that I think we could all learn from when it comes to improving its brain.
There's value in knowing that we're all human and we all have our own strengths and weaknesses, and I just so happen to really understand what mine are, and I also really understand my weaknesses. So
Fatality, I do want to pivot a little bit. We've been talking about Falcon, his potential future in the metagame and what it has been thus far. A lot of people in the Smash scene kind of equate you with Falcon himself. Like, I've seen you around, I've seen you on stream, and you sometimes I'll see you wear like leather, and you're kind of tall and lean, and you kind of like are the personification of Falcon in a lot of ways, in like a really kind of cool way.
Thank you.
Do you identify with Falcon? Are you like a proper character loyalist? And do you think that's ever to your detriment, or is that an advantage that you have?
I would say that I wouldn't say I directly identify him so much as I kind of view him as someone I channel from time to time. Like, at the end of the day, Douglas J. Falcon is his own man, and so am I. But I definitely channel him from time to time through my gameplay.
Yeah, because I know there's like F-Zero lore. I'm aware there's like a manga. Isn't there like an anime too? But
yes, I actually grew up watching that.
That makes sense. It's part of like your
That's
own.
Incredible.
But maybe it's like one of those things where after Falcon, he gets old, he kind of wants to retire, and then he passes down the mask, and suddenly you're the man behind the mask, and you're the one with the keys to the blue Falcon.
Well, funnily enough, there's actually a pretty famous clip of... All right, so the original Captain Falcon canonically is no longer alive. He died.
What?
He died.
What?
Was he up against a Sheik in Smash 4?
No. Did you ever see the famous clip of Captain Falcon in the show Falcon punching Black Shadow, jumping out of his car, and it like explodes an entire galaxy?
I unfortunately have to say that I have not, but I wish that I have.
You know what? Do yourself a favor. Just look up Falcon Punch, and there should be a video about a minute and a half long. It's just a clip from the show. He goes out like a boss.
Wait, so then what? So what happens? Is there a man that replaces him, or is that just the end of the show?
Um, he basically passes the title down, but not before doing that.
Oh,
It's
okay,
kind of
okay.
like Captain Falcon is kind of like Batman, where it doesn't technically have to be anyone, but the first was Douglas J. Falcon, and then like
Oh,
someone else can assume the title, but like the current Falcon basically has to approve it, and they have to deem you worthy of it.
okay. Well, I mean, if a man is worthy of it, wouldn't it be Griffin Miller at this point?
Perhaps I try to make no illusions as to what I have or haven't done. I can only focus on doing things for the future and just trying to better myself, what I do in the game, and just trying to accomplish my other life goals. And what other people decide to make or don't make of it, can't really control. So, not really going to focus on that, honestly.
Yeah, it's cool. Work with what you can control, and I absolutely like that philosophy in terms of both improving and building out what you think your personality is, regardless of what other people look at it. And thinking about this methodical building out and construction of a persona. You it seems like you have experimented with other characters, and you I don't think you would put it you would completely table the idea of throwing other characters into your roster. And when do you think that this is kind of like a short term thing, or do you think that you are going to have long term developed characters other than Captain Falcon?
To be honest, I highly doubt I'm going to have long term developed characters outside of Falcon. Like, there was a period in time where I was trying a variety of characters specifically under the expectation that, I was going to need someone else to supplement Falcon because of some of his weaker matchups. And then this patch came along, and I was like, wait a second. In theory, I might not have a single matchup worse than -1, and there might not even be that many -1 matchups. So why not just solo main Falcon at this point, which is what I would have wanted to do anyway. And that's literally my current plan is just all Falcon all the way.
See, that makes a lot of sense to me. It seems kind of pragmatic. Like you're saying, okay, I don't think that any matchups terrible enough to warrant the necessity to pick up, a counter pick or a secondary kind of character, which is totally fair. And I know that some people might miscategorize you as like I don't know, not a Falcon fanboy, but there's some people out there that win or lose, no matter what, they want to play a specific character. In all instances, they identify with them so strongly. Maybe it's Bowser. Like you live and breathe Bowser. You sleep with a Bowser plushie. Your first child's first name will inevitably be Bowser, right? And even if Bowser got nerfed all the way to the ground and they had no winning matchups at all, potentially they would rather lose with Bowser than win with somebody else. And that's fine. I'm not trying to condemn that attitude. But, do you think there's ever any pros and cons to like investing your entire life into one character? Or, would you, as someone who might be accused to be like a super character loyalist, would you ever advise someone like that to, consider trying someone else? Like, where do you stand on this?
I'm of the opinion that if you're willing to do that, that implies that you're more or less playing for fun and or personal pride at this point rather than through direct attempts to try and progress further through a competitive landscape. So because of that, if you're more or less focused on just doing that, it doesn't really matter how well you do or don't do, so there's no real effect or downside to it. If you've more or less accepted everything that comes with that lifestyle. But like in my case, for instance, I'm a competitor, and there's a reason I literally didn't play Brawl competitively. It's because Falcon was garbage in it. Like, suppose Falcon ended up being unplayably bad in this game and he never got buffs. That'd be it. Bye, guys. It was fun. And I'm just going to go do other things. Like, I'm going to play Falcon at a level where I can succeed with him. Or if he's not at that level, then I'm just going to go on with the rest of my life because I am not by any means someone who is completely invested in Smash, although obviously I am very invested into it and I love the series. But I am certainly someone with many career aspirations that are completely unrelated, and so suppose that were to happen, I would just go to one of those.
That seems to me like either incredibly mature. Well, it does seem incredibly mature, but also like slightly crazy in a way that I like. Like, how is that? How do you? That's just so you're so clear minded about that. And for so many people, myself included, Smash is like this emotional thing, and I feel like I could never really say goodbye to it. It kind of latches on you and holds you down forever. Um, but for you, it really is about Falcon.
Oh yeah.
It really is about being the best you can be, playing Smash Bros as Falcon, and you would rather do something else if that was no longer, like, let's say Smash 6 for some reason Falcon just didn't make the cut somehow, you just wouldn't be interested.
Nope.
Do you think that kind of mindset elevates you as a competitor? Does it perhaps inhibit you as a competitor,
I would say both.
or okay, how so?
I would say it helps in the sense that when you're so fully committed to learning the game as a character, there's a lot of mistakes where lower level players will try to play many characters, and because of that, the skill sets they're developing are going to be disproportionate because they're learning the game through the context of many different lenses, but they're not reconciling the small differences that define what makes a good decision versus one versus another. And so because of that, you end up with a lot of people who know how to behave as one character in one situation, but not with another. And they just end up having very disjointed views of the game, which leads to, even if they might technically know a lot, it doesn't reliably manifest into anything because it's just a bunch of random pieces from a bunch of random systems that don't naturally coalesce together into anything. And because I really only view the game through the lens of one character, I don't have to worry about misinterpreting anything. There is simply information and what I choose to do with it.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because I was going to talk about the merits and demerits of looking at the game through multiple lenses. And the thing is, you seem to characterize it as something that holds you back in a lot of ways, and I completely understand that. Like the moment that you switch contexts, like something that was good with one character is suddenly a completely different category, or it could be really bad with another character. And are there cases in which there's overlap? Like you said that it seems like a random collection of systems, but are there cases in which there is this union where you can look at the game through multiple lenses and gain something out of it?
Hypothetically, yes, but not for me because the way I've wanted to play this game has been so intrinsically tied to how I want to play Falcon that at this point there's literally no distinction between the two. They are one and the same. Whereas with some players, like a good notable example is Tweak, who plays like a lot of different characters, and the way he's learned the game is he's learned the game as a whole rather than through any particular lens, and so it works for him because he's so well rounded. And then there's someone like me who has taken the exact opposite approach and just tried to become as literally as knowledgeable as possible and try to be the most knowledgeable possible with your one character, to where you try to reach that point where no one will know more about this character and how to play them than you do. And then it's just a matter of playing them well enough. I'm not going to say I've achieved that, but that has been a goal of mine since the very first moment I decided to play competitively. And of course, something else that influenced me into wanting to play competitive Falcon in particular is obviously I loved the show growing up. But when I first discovered competitive Smash, it was through watching old Melee videos of Isaiah playing like Ken, PC Chris, and other guys.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was kind of my hero. So, like, I already loved Falcon. I already wanted to play a character like Falcon, and then that happened. And when you put the three together, like, there was no question in my mind what I wanted to do at that point.
It seems like you have this such elevated like sense of self-awareness and understanding who you are as a person. And I know you mentioned about it before, and I kind of want to let you explain that. So you, because of this like like this understanding of what you want out of the game, what you can offer to the game, and what you and essentially where what your path is as a player. What have been your weaknesses? What have you identified to be like the things that, in your own words, like makes you tick? Where do you find yourself falling, even with this like methodical, science based practice that you have?
All right, so something that very often happens, and as a manifestation of the way I play, is while there are very scientific ways of playing the game, my particular mode of it is so deeply rooted in psychology to where, like, I don't know if you've seen much of my neutral, but I do not play a traditional neutral at all that is based around like safe pokes and things like that. I am literally 100% of the time just trying to counter what I think you're about to do.
Huh.
I am not playing traditional neutral. I'm literally just trying to predict what you're going to do and counteract it at every single moment of the game. Every game.
And are you saying this is a weakness of yours, or is this just a reflection of the way that you view the game?
Both. It's a weakness in the sense that if I have insufficient data to support any kind of conclusion, well, you can't reliably make a decision that you're going to be confident is going to work, assuming those criteria. But consequently, if suppose hypothetically you end up having that amount of data, what you can go from there is saying, well, clearly I need X amount of information to reliably predict, well, anything, right? So once you have that amount of information, in theory, there's nothing stopping you aside from just your own failures. So it gives you a lot of power that you might not have otherwise, but until you reach that point, it is undoubtedly a weakness. And it's one of the reasons why it took me a while to get off my feet in Smash 4 and why I feel like I'm starting to really catch more ground in this game is because I'm now starting to have enough data to where I can do that successfully on some level.
Oh, sure. I mean, I actually am really interested in the way that you view the development of the meta of Smash Ultimate. I know you've gone on record saying that Captain Falcon was a great example of a character who's, I believe you said it was a late meta character.
For sure.
And yeah, like this concept to me is interesting. I could definitely see, early meta characters would be characters like Wolf or Lucina, who are kind of the first time you play them. Ike, oh, exactly, Ike. The first time you play them, you can kind of understand the limitations of their strengths almost instantaneously. And I was hoping you could help me define like what is a late meta character, and what are the pros and cons of playing a character whose success will probably be on the tail end of a game's meta.
Well, you already more or less clearly defined what defines the successes of, say, a short-term meta character. They just have tools that can very readily be used more or less, not optimally, obviously, but certainly well enough to where, relative to the rest of the cast, you can utilize their strengths effectively with a lesser level of effort and time than you could with another character. This doesn't necessarily mean that they have a skill ceiling or whatever. It just means that you can effectively use them with less time investment than you can a character that is a late meta character, for instance. And what defines a late meta character is they're usually a character whose options, and more specifically how to use them the best you can, are a lot more ambiguous. Falcon has, especially with the buffs he's received, he almost has too many options now to where there are so many ways he can go about doing anything. Like his combo trees are not flowcharting the slightest. It's not like you do X combo and then you pretty much just try and do it every single game. He has so many different ways that his combos can vary. Almost all of them are very close to frame perfect, if not entirely frame perfect. And then they're also very DI dependent, very situation dependent, very stage position dependent, weight class dependent, percent dependent. He is an extremely specific and precise character, but at the same time, the hypothetical returns you can get for proper execution, assuming you can read your opponent's DI and create the proper situations in which you can properly take advantage of these things, what ends up happening is Falcon's perfect punish game is so much scarier than most characters' perfect punish games, that combined with the versatility of his neutral game, especially with the bolstered options post-patch, and the greater amount of moves he can contest that he couldn't before, makes it to where it's going to take a long time before someone will have developed enough muscle memory and practice to be able to understand which moves to use in which situations, all the tiny little differences that will make using one move over another and slightly overlapping situations valuable, and things like that. He is just, and then on top of that, he's also just physically technical on top of everything else. I genuinely believe that he's easily one of the 5 hardest characters in the game to use. Like, I'm not going to say who the other 4 are, but I think he is easily one of the hardest characters in this game. And that is why he's late meta.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I can absolutely agree with that. Like, there's so many different layers to what goes into the character. There's this essential, you're talking about option fatigue in terms of you're unsure, you have so many options, you're unsure of all of these different branching paths. It's like all of these fractal like scenarios that kind of just make thinking about the character, thinking 3 steps ahead, or like reflecting 2 steps behind, like, so difficult. And we observe in, for example, Super Smash Bros. Melee, things are still being developed to this day. And do you recommend that if someone has to play Falcon, do you just basically tell them you better be playing this character for the long haul?
Yes.
Or don't play this character at all?
I'm never going to tell someone not to play Falcon because he's too fun of a character. But I'm going to tell you, if you want to have actual success with him, you need to be ready to commit. Do not secondary him. Just don't. It's not worth it. He is a character that if you're going to play seriously, you main him or you just don't play him at all. Obviously, he's still really fun casually, even if you don't have a nuanced understanding of all these like branching paths and things like that. And none of us do at this point. There's just, at best, we are just varied levels of garbage right now. Everyone. MK Leo too. Right. He's just less garbage than most. That's how I describe the good players of this game right now, because this game has enough depth to it to where we're going to look back years from now, we're going to be like, ew, when we watch it. Like, it's not going to look nice, because there's enough depth in this game to where I more or less have projected what I think the path for this game's development is going to be, and let's just say it doesn't look like what it is right now.
Wow, that's actually so funny to me.
So we're all trash.
This is, well, I already knew I was trash, but
I'm trash too. Don't worry about it.
Well, like, that's the thing, is like, you say everybody's trash, and I see what you're saying with that. But out of the people that have succeeded, there's definitely a lot of people that have seen success early on into this game's life cycle.
For sure.
Do you think those same people will be successful later on, but their gameplay will just transform to be not like trash?
Yes.
Or will people down the road that maybe aren't doing that well right now, that are maybe investing into stuff like perfect, parrying, and maybe like, more nuanced tech and combo perfection, like you are with Falcon, are those people going to be seeing better success relative to the people that are maybe stuck to the same mains as they played in previous games, or aren't really pushing the envelope into the potential depth of Smash Ultimate?
I would say it's roughly 50-50. I think a good portion of our current top player base are going to remain pretty successful down the road, but I wouldn't be surprised if a decent amount of them also fade away over time as the game changes its identity quite a lot. Like, especially once things like parrying become really standard at high level rather than just something that sometimes happens, and suddenly it's something you always have to think about, that alone will change neutral dramatically. And then that doesn't even take into account all the other things that are developing over time. Like that's literally just one thing. And then when you consider all of these things as a whole, there's no way that this game isn't going to look very different in like a few years.
That's pretty exciting, actually. We're kind of on this frontier. Like this is all uncharted territory, and it is kind of fun. It makes every tournament feel a little bit more like a piece of history than I
Exactly.
suppose if the game was solved initially, where would we have to go, but nowhere. Um,
If it was a game that you could solve that quickly, I would have jumped ship a while ago because if it if this game didn't give me a lot to think about, I would have gone bored very fast and just gone to do one of my other career options or whatever.
well, that's kind of one thing that you keep kind of going back to, Fatality, that really interests me about you is just how kind of cerebral. I know everybody uses that word in Smash, but how thoughtful and contemplative you are about your relationship with the game, and the game's relationship with you as a person, and that really intrigues me. For you, what is this all about? What do you get out of Smash? Why do you keep grinding away? Why is this the thing that you've chosen?
Well, I would say that for the most part, all the different career paths I have planned down the road are all designed to satisfy different desires of myself in the highest form that I can. So, this one, for instance, is all about proving to myself that I have what it takes to not only find competitive success, but to reach the highest form in doing so. This is funnily enough, like a childhood hero of mine was Benjamin Franklin. And I don't know how well versed you are in his historical exploits, but he was well defined as a man that was among the best of literally everything he did. And not only did he do like one or two things, but he was a man that was at the forefront of like a gazillion different things, all of which he put himself into. A true Renaissance man, if you will. And I'm not going to claim I am, but I'm certainly trying my best to be one because you only live once. So all my crazy dreams, I'm going to try and chase them all individually and see what happens. Might as well, right? And proving myself as a competitor through this is how I've chosen to I guess chase the competitive side of me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's interesting because you have it seems, at least from what you've said, you have a lot of different avenues that you want to chase down, but they're all very specific. So it's almost it's to me, the analogy that I look at is that you're going for your PhD all the time. You're never just kind of picking up master's degrees here and there. You just want
Exactly.
to, yeah, you want to find something, explore it out completely, become well versed and and like well known in one thing. And and the thing is that that's so awesome because like that there's I think for people that are are on the cusp of that, or like feel that they could possibly identify with that, what advice do you give to those people to kind of just dive in and completely absorb that into the way that you characterize accomplishments and like career progression?
Well, obviously different people are going to be driven by different things, but like I mentioned earlier, you only live once, so there's really no logical reason not to take whatever it is you love and try to push it as far as you can. Even some really obscure things like, God, let me think of something real quick. Like fly fishing. There are literally professional fly fishers. Like, sure, why not?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, if you really want something enough, why not try and make it happen? You've probably nothing to, well, not much to lose, probably, but potentially so much to gain. So, as long as you're willing to do something where the reward is at least worth or equivalent to the risk, then why wouldn't you, you know? I guess it's just
I
about
love that,
having the
man.
courage to just push yourself out there and be willing to do that, be willing to fail, because if you're not willing to fail, then you aren't really going to succeed. Because one of the things that
yeah.
often defines the most successful is that they have been willing to fail significantly more than average in the name of learning.
Right. I mean that's so funny because that like what you said exactly right there to me summarizes exactly what I have grown to expect from watching a Fatality's Falcon match. Like you never seem to be afraid to take a risk in the name of something greater. And for that, I'll remember you, man. It's been a pleasure watching you over the years, and it's been a pleasure talking to you today and kind of getting a peek into the brain of the greatest Falcon to ever do it.
Thank you.
So, man, thank you so much for coming on, Fatality.
Thank you. And well, if you ever wondered, yes, I am pretty much the exact same person playing as I am when I'm not playing. Like the way I play is very much a reflection of myself in all its strengths and all of its weaknesses.
That's incredible, and I
That's
think
beautiful.
like after talking to you only for what's but like 45 minutes, after talking to you for that period of time, I can really see the truth behind that. I think it's really incredible.
Thank you.
And again, man, I appreciate. I'm definitely AV, and I'll be rooting for you in your coming tournaments. We have been, but we'll continue doing
I
so.
sincerely appreciate it.
And I should tell you this though, Fatality, you have joined the elite, the illustrious BTM Hall of Fame for coming on today.
All right.
So you're in great company. Some of the I think Benjamin Franklin, your childhood hero, also came on the show previously. You're in an elite roster of gentlemen and ladies. And before you head off, Fatality, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/fatalityfalcon. You can find me on YouTube at my youtube.com/fatalityfalcon, or on Twitch, twitch.tv/fatalityfalcon. I've had the privilege, I guess, of being able to maintain the exact same username everywhere. It's not something everyone gets, and so it makes it nice and easy to keep up with me.
That's awesome, man. Well, hey, thanks again for coming on, man. Take care.
All right, you guys have a good night.
Welcome back to Beyond the Metagame. AV and I just concluded our interview with Fatality. AV, that was kind of a trip. I adored that interview.
I adored it as well. I think it was incredible, mostly because I loved how self-aware he was. It's so cool what you can do when you know your weaknesses and strengths so well that you can just pretty much optimize everything you can do based off it. And I think getting to that understanding is something obviously that is not maybe a possibility for every individual in the world, but it's kind of something we can always strive to. And it shows that like we don't need to try to be like Fatality, but we should emulate trying to find our strengths and weaknesses and then maximizing those.
Yeah, like it's kind of a very proactive approach, right? Like reacting is when certain stimuli come to you, you respond to them. And that's kind of what a lot of people do, I think, like throughout life, throughout Smash, where, they go to a tournament and things happen to them. They'll go to a match, they'll get hit by something, and they'll allow that outside force to kind of dictate where their head's at and what their strategies are. But he kind of like so thoroughly pre-plans and pre-contemplates everything about every fiber of his being. He's like, well, I am this way, therefore I'll practice in this way until I understand this concept, which I will apply here and there. Like, it's a very deliberate, proactive approach. And I have to say, I'm a big fan. It was pretty great to listen to his whole philosophy.
It was beautiful. It was super cool. I absolutely enjoyed it. I have like a similar approach, although I can't claim to have really gotten even close to his level of success with it. But I think that it was a huge inspiration, especially as someone who likes to view training patterns as in a similar way to him. So can't really ask for anything more from that. it was a really cool
Cool.
experience.
Cool stuff, man. Well, I think this is the time, AV, to move into our questions. This week, I'll throw the first one at JV. The Netler asks, "Hey, what were your first impressions of each other when you first met?"
I this isn't like a dating situation in which like I remember very clearly the very first time that I met Peon, although it should be, because it was honestly love at first sight, clearly. But
Yes.
but I think the first time we met had to have been when we like played friendlies, and when I first got to know him, I didn't realize how obnoxious he was. I'm kidding.
Come on, man.
So something that a lot of people know about Dane is that he's a very like social guy, and he gets along with everyone, extremely friendly, super gregarious. So first impressions were awesome, dude. He's actually the most social person that I've ever met in the Smash community. So I'm already like super like attracted to this guy and on many levels. But and it's
yes.
and I was just like, all right, this is a cool guy. I want to hang out with him. What about me, dude?
That's funny. I mean, I appreciate it, Livy. You're a lot more nuanced than I am. I think I'm kind of like what you see is what you get kind of a person, where you kind of are like a map where you have to like first you see the little brochure, but then you unfold it and there's all these different panels and like you need like a compass rose to like translate the damn thing, and that is kind of AV. And I think my impression still stands. I met him and we played. I think we played in tournament before. Like the first time I actually remember talking to you was the first time we played in tournament.
Right. Okay.
And like you were just oozing effort. That's what I remember. like you would hit me every single time you hit me. Like your forearms would tense up, and then I could tell it got in your head because I just like was playing. We were playing Sheik Falcon in Smash 4. That was a pretty bad matchup for Falcon. And I just like won with just like throwing out like some YOLO F smashes. And I could tell that like you really cared about the match and you really felt when that F smash hit and like your emotion kind of shone through as I took that first set. And that was kind of like an interesting situation to first get to know each other because it's like a competitive context. We were kind of enemies at our first encounter, right? In that little micro instant. But I think that like that impression still holds true. Like you are the kind of person that literally puts 110% effort into everything. Kind of like how Fatality was talking about, where he doesn't really like to half-ass things. He likes to get his PhD in all aspects of life. That's kind of you too. Like you, even through victory or defeat, you definitely are tense the whole time and trying your hardest. So I think it still stands.
Yeah, I feel like that is I guess that doesn't really surprise me. That's like the first thing I gave off. And like, because in that moment when you F smashed me, I was like, come on, dude, that was the most random F smash. I was like, why did I get for that? It was last stock, last hit. And the funny part was, the most annoying thing was our second set ended the exact same way. Game 3, last stock, last hit, Sheik Falcon. You ended it with an F smash. And that made me.
You eventually figured it out. You figured it out eventually.
I did eventually.
You got the last laugh. So our second question comes from Ferris, who says, "What are y'all's top 3 video game moments in any game?" AV, you can go first. We'll go like back and forth with it.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a game I really like. It's one of my top 3 favorite games of all time. It's called The Talos Principle. It's kind of like a puzzle game where it's not. It has a Portal novelty to it, similar type of game, and the ending of that game, which I will not spoil, is is absolutely my favorite gaming moment because it kind of breaks the boundaries between game and real life, and understanding like is this? It's like a very Matrix-esque moment where you aren't sure whether or not you're also in a game yourself. So it was definitely a trip.
Dope, man. Yeah, I know you've been telling me I should play that. Eventually I will, I promise. My first one comes from like I think it was like the first game I really remember beating. I know I beat like Pokemon and some other games before this. But for me, the most memorable ending to any video game ever was the ending of Donkey Kong Country 1. Because after you beat King K. Rool for the first time, you go back to like Donkey Kong's treehouse, and like all the characters that you fought, all the enemies, all your animal helpers, all the other Kongs, all the bosses, kind of walk through the treehouse, almost like a cast, at the end of a theatrical production, like a musical or a play. And everybody kind of takes a little bow, and you learn all the characters' names, and it's really cute. I love it.
I didn't think you. I think for that you would be one for cute nostalgia, but I like it. I like the side of you, Peon.
I'm I got a lot of facets. Av. I'm a chaotic individual.
Yeah, you do, and I like it. I like it. Okay, so I think undoubtedly, if I have to put it, this is just kind of like it just has to go in there. The nuke from Modern Warfare 1, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1, such a meaningful, well thought, very well animated and expressed in the story. There's so many cool parts to why that was a great moment just as a gamer. It was just very, very much, it was actually like meaningful. Like when you played through and it dropped, like you legitimately felt, if you didn't feel a connection to the story or to the game or to the characters, you actually may be a robot. So but
yeah, honestly, Modern Warfare 1 and 2 have really good storylines. Like people kind of, you think of Call of Duty, you don't really think of like interesting narratives, but they're actually, those games had some cool stuff to say. It was actually pretty cool. Okay, my second one is the first time that I glided off of the Great Plateau in Breath of the Wild. So like there's this great moment when you first awake from the cavern that Link has been sleeping in for 100 years, and you kind of like get an entire vista of the entire surrounding landscapes of Hyrule, and all the mountains and features are kind of in the background, and inevitably you will explore that area, you will conquer it, it will be yours for the taking. But before then, you have a very, admittedly great tutorial in the Great Plateau where you can hop around and you learn a lot of things about the game and the systems of the game. But after you complete that, you get the glider, and you first kind of get to pick a direction and say, look, man, I'm going to go explore over there. And it's like this awesome kind of first step into an epic journey.
Ah, that's awesome, man. I love that. I've yet to experience that myself. And I know you're
man. You'll get on it. I'm making you borrow my cartridge for sure next time we hang out.
Okay, deal. Absolute deal. In my defense, I did not have the Switch at the very beginning on release. I bought it with Smash. So I wasn't able to enjoy some of those release titles. Did play Mario Odyssey. I did do my due diligence playing that excellent addition to the Mario franchise. But if I were to say another one of my top 5, I definitely wouldn't be able to get to all of them. But one of the most meaningful experiences in video games is playing this one indie game called Return of the Obra Dinn. It's this, you play like this insurance inspector that has to go on this that has to solve a murder mystery, or like 50 murder mysteries on this one ship. And I'm gonna be so abstract as to say that there was not one moment, but everyone's moment where it just turns out where it's like, wow, I'm a detective, or like, oh, wow, like I just solved like this really cool case using like very abstract and indirect clues. Like I had so many of those moments during that game that it just made me feel good. It made me feel rewarded, and it was the story was just told in such an indirect way that you kind of got to piece the bits together yourself and create your own headcanon. So I know I didn't give like a specific moment, but like the entire thing was just so it was just so cool.
That was like so abstract that I don't even really know what you just said, but I'm glad it was meaningful for you, AV. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. But yeah, I have no idea what you just talked about. My third one is getting recon armor in Halo 3. So if you don't know what that was just from hearing it, then you'll have missed out in one of gaming's most epic accomplishments. And AV, I rant to you about this topic a lot, but I'm a big fan of when games put monumental tasks in front of you and then reward you greatly. And these days in the world of microtransactions and loot boxes and all that, kind of post-release monetization of video games, you lose the concept of, hey, you do this amazing thing, here's a really cool aesthetic award. And Halo 3, getting the recon armor to me is like the epitome of the concept of, okay, here's a really crazy thing. If you can do it, you're gonna have this armor that signifies everything that you had to do to get to unlock it. It was one of those things where like you'd be in a lobby and you'd be playing against people, and if they had recon armor, it was like, oh, okay, we're gonna lose. Like, there's no way we're beating these guys. They have recon. And when I unlocked that, my friend, that was like the craziest. It was like a multi-stepped 7-part achievement process where each individual step was like seemed impossibly difficult.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, so what goes into unlocking the armor? I actually have no clue.
Yeah, like one of the challenges was like you have to beat the final level of the game on the hardest difficulty with a modifier where if one of your people die, you go back to the checkpoint if one of the players died. But you had to do a 4-player co-op. So if one person died on the hardest difficulty, which was very common, you would all get sent back to the last checkpoint. So it would take like 5 hours to do like one super hard level. And by the end of it, you hate all of your friends, but it's like this crazy bonding thing, and that's just one of the 7, right? There's like 7 things that are that hard.
Yeah, that's absolutely insane. I agree. You've talked to me about this at length, so I know how emotionally attached you are to this one topic, and I love that we were able to talk about it today. But thank you for sharing that with us.
Well, cool, man. Hey, that's all the time we have for this week. AV, it's been a pleasure. Where can people find you, my friend?
People can find me at A plus my long Indian last name on Twitter. That's A Vaidyanatha. Not actually my long Indian last name. I wonder how many people have have learned to look that up. But where can people find you?
There's like 1,000 people that want to follow you on Twitter, AV, but they just have no idea how to. You can find me at a much more easy to understand tag, Peon_BTM. That's Peon_BTM. That's Bravo Tango Mike for all of you caffeine addicts. I don't know. I'm running out of things to say there, AV.
Well, at least you got me. I'm definitely a caffeine addict.
You can find our show at Beyond Metagame. That's right, Beyond Metagame. The show you're currently listening to is Beyond the Metagame, but Twitter doesn't give a damn, right? There was not enough characters to fit the. So here we are. Before I sign off, I do want to remind you guys, you can join our Discord. It's a great place to meet like-minded people, people that want to improve, people that love Smash, that love gaming, and people are really nice in there, always looking for games, always looking to play, even games that aren't Smash too. Like, the community definitely has varied gaming interests. And that can be found at our website, in the show notes, and in the YouTube description of this program. And you can support BTM on Patreon. It's a pretty cool thing. The patrons help make this show possible. They also make our second show, Beyond the Metagame, where patrons have exclusive access and can dictate what we talk about and the games that we play, the bits that we do. And it's a really fun, interactive show. And we're having a lot of fun with it so far. So if you want to listen to that, consider becoming a patron. But for now, that is all we have. As always, thank you for listening. Goodbye.